of the future. Stay tuned. We will use the real name of places and countries. We will use the real name of Africa, which is Alkebulan. We will use the true name of Egypt, which is Kemet. We will use the true name of Ethiopia, which is Kush. Nubia, which is Kush. We will describe that one piece of land from Tanzania as it should be. Please bear with us for sticking to the true names of human history and human culture. Just to recap a little bit, early human history evolved in the alluvial plains around the Alkebulan Great Lake, where Lake Nalabale is encircled by Kenya, Congo, and Tanzania. Lake Nalabale, called the Mother of God by the Alkebulans, as well as the Mother of all rivers, along with River Nile and the Okavango in the Kalahari, enable much of human history, as you have heard before, which began about 2.5 million years ago with Alkebulans, Habilis erectus, and now the Khoi Khoi of the Kalahari region, and more specifically, the rich rainforests of the Okavango. According to both genetic and fossil evidence, early Homo sapiens arrived to modern humans in Alkebulan between 250,000 to 100,000 years ago, with members of one branch crossing the ocean and seas from Alkebulan around 60,000 years ago, and over time replacing early human populations such as Neanderthals and Homo erectus. So the inhabitants of Lake Nalabale and Nile River countries from Kenya to Kemet were all Kushite kingdoms forming the Tasseti Empire and later the Kushite Empire. But when these countries were renamed, they were for all intent and purposes essentially to remove Egypt from Kush and making the newly renamed Alkebulan into what is now called Africa, as has been discussed before. I will use artifacts to show how ancient Alkebulan civilizations and Alkebulan empires gradually and systematically developed in this region from 200,000 years to 10,000 years ago. We have paintings, handicrafts, hieroglyphics, arts, engineering feats left behind in thousands of burial sites or cemeteries or construction areas will prove the glory of the Kushite knowledge and wisdom. These finds have been verified by carbon dating and the use of radioactive compounds. So beginning at the Great Lakes, for over 100,000 years, the Khoi Khoi existed and still exists there today in southern Alkebulan, and the Kalahari's Okavango, the Khoikhoi has the purest human gene pool of any racial group on Earth. 750,000 years ago, the prehistoric Khoikhoi ancestor had moved up to the east and west and north Alkebulan because of adverse weather conditions. It is believed that the Ice Age caused the growth and expansion of the Kalahari Desert as well as the Sahara, resulting in forced migration. Some Khoikhoi eventually exited Africa, probably by boats or canoes across the Red Sea, crossing the Sinai Desert and the land known today as Saudi Arabia. Some Khoikhoi ancestors also exited Alkebulan and entered into the tropical areas of Europe and Asia approximately 700,000 years ago. Khoikhoi Bushmen fanned out in East and West Alkebulan, finally settling down among the tropical regions of the Alkebulan Great Lakes between 200,000 and 20,000 years ago. This entire region was originally part of the Kushite Empire, probably the most powerful and far-reaching empire that also spread into other continents. Now, let's talk about the precursor to Taseti. Taseti, Kerma, Kush. We could say these are more modern versions of the early Kushites. The rise of the Kushites was indelible, systematic, very deliberate, based on all the prehistoric histories that I have provided so far. Habilis, about 2 million years ago. Erectus, about 1 million plus years ago. Homo sapiens, at least the early Homo sapiens, under 1 million years ago. And then I spoke of the Khoikhoi in southern Alkebulan, the Khoikhoi, the Khoisan, the Bantu. From the Terran cultures to the Nazlet cultures and villages, and all the industrial and commercial practices of these very early villages and how they form in one place, in one locale, these exceptional villages that became the kingdom of Kustal, the kingdom of Naphtali, the kingdoms from Tanzania to Egypt, the kingdoms of Kerma, the kingdoms of Taseti, the kingdom of all these different places that became the imperial system of the Kushite Empire. I'll walk you through it step by step. Stay tuned. The rise of the Kushite, the development of the Kushite Empire. Now we will give you details in terms of timeline, and we'll give you details in terms of how the various kingdoms in the Kushite Empire created their own systems of administration, who had their different inventions that coalesced into all the inventions that led to the creation and development of the powerful We will give you all the details, and then we will also, in doing so, focus on the more critical kingdoms and cultures that gave rise to the powerful Kushite Empire. So we are leaving Habilis and Erectus and the early Homo sapiens behind, and now we're going to take it from the Khoikhoi and their migration to east-west and north Alkebulan. We will briefly touch on how they crossed the ocean into Europe and other places in the world about 750,000 years ago. We will also look at the more recent 150,000 years ago, the Atarian culture and the Nazlit culture, and their contributions in terms of the first industrialized systems, the first commercial systems, and we will give you details about what they invented, what they created, what they traded in, and how they did it, how they created the first industrialized and commercial systems, including the Khoikhoi. And then we're going to turn to the Ishanga bone was discovered 30,000 years ago. They invented mathematical calculations. And then we're going to stay a little longer in Dongola, where hundreds, perhaps thousands of axes were found in rows, indicating a very industrialized and technological culture. And that was over 70,000 years ago. And then we're going to move up to the Naptons, or the Napton Kingdom. You've heard of Napta Playa, where the first astronomical system was found anywhere in the world. A system with a calendar that they use, the Naptons use to study the stars and for their study of astrology. Of course, they engage also in the scientific studies of geology and earth science. And of course, they invented trigonometry, algebra, and other mathematical calculations that they used to map the Orion system, the star systems, accurately. And this was between 15,000 years ago to 30,000 years ago, between 15,000 years to 30,000 years ago. We'll also tell you about Kustal, another kingdom, critical kingdom. Kustal in the Kushite Empire was the birthplace of kingship, of dynastic rule, of priesthood. And then, to take it a step further, divine kingship, divine worship, divine priesthood, the divine supreme deity, or the divine supreme God. The Kustal discovery we will discuss in great details as well. All of these findings were made in the Kushite Empire. And then finally we will discuss the kingdom and the empire of Taseti that gave rise to Kermer. And then we will discuss Kustal, Taseti, Kerma, Napata, Meroe, Egypt, all part of the glorious, indelible Kushite Empire.